Three, two, one. Hey guys, today we are here with Brandon Herrera, the founder of AK Guy Inc. with 3.260 million followers, or 3.26 million followers on YouTube. Currently developing the 50 caliber rifle known as the AK-50. Did I get that right? I don't know.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's go. And to add on his list, he's going to be running for Congress. So on my notes, I put, you are basically a badass with guns running for Congress. I think that's pretty base. Do you want to tell me about that?
Well, based is one way or the other. We're making some waves because just on Tuesday night, we kind of shocked the state of Texas and shocked DC for sure because we were able to successfully, take the incumbent Rhino Republican Tony Gonzalez to a runoff, which is not something Tony was expecting. It wasn't something that a lot of DC I think expected, and it's opened a lot of doors for us because
Yes.
it's really. It sent a very loud and clear message because a lot of people I'm sure said, this guy's a YouTuber, he's an internet candidate, didn't really take me seriously because they weren't paying attention to all the grassroots we were doing, all the money we were raising, talking to the people, going out to the places in the district that felt most abandoned by somebody like Tony. And I think we turned a lot of heads, and I think we're just getting started.
I think you turned a lot of heads because when I did my calculations, Team Anyone But Tony was 31,604 votes. Tony only got 25,000. If you collect all that data, it's 55%. He only got 45.1% of the vote. So obviously, the district does not want Tony.
Yes.
Why is that?
Well,
I'm pretty sure you got answers for that.
The question is why anybody would want to keep him, and the answer, unfortunately, is he's got the incumbent advantage. He's got a lot of establishment money, and he feels pretty much invincible. And a lot of his comments, even since then, have kind of proven that.
Yeah.
But the answer to why anybody would want him gone is take your poison. The reason I got involved originally is because of his vote on gun control.
Yes.
Because he's voting. He voted on the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which is not bipartisan. It's a misnomer. It was like 17 turncoat Republicans in the House voted for that bill, and he was one of them.
Yeah.
And that funded red flag laws. It funded gun control. And since then, I paid attention to a lot of his other votes. He voted for a $400 million vaccine tracking database. He voted. He worked against Republicans like Chip Roy on his border bill.
I'm actually from South Texas. I grew up 20 minutes from the border. So I've seen the border, and my brother originally was stationed out in Fort Bliss. So I've seen it from El Paso and from the Valley. And let me tell you, Tony never goes to the border. He doesn't care about the border. He's kind of like Kamala.
Yeah. He'll go to Shelby Park with Elon Musk, and whenever there's a publicity thing to do over there in Eagle Pass. Pictures. And then he leaves because I've went to the places around the border. Like I went to Alpine, Fort Davis. I went to El Paso. I went to Del Rio, places like that. They say Tony doesn't come here.
He doesn't. He doesn't show up.
No, that's a recurring theme with Tony. He doesn't show up.
He never does. Never does. I think it's kind of interesting that you say kind of more about Tony Gonzalez and the quotes that you stated. Let me see if I can find. Oh, sorry guys, I'm kind of sick. Let's see.
You got the coof? You trying to infect me? Is this an assassination attempt?
Do not got the Chinese virus. Let's see. His quote, like last year, because it doesn't really talk online, but his response to the primaries in this election was, "I'm going to kick their ass, no doubt, but it's going to cost me time, money, energy, effort. Instead of fending off against Democrats here, I have to go down crazy Republicans," which is what he said. I think it's kind of interesting to see that he's said me, time, money, and energy, and he doesn't even talk about the people.
Yeah. And he doesn't talk about the reason why anybody would be challenging him in a primary. He didn't get to the base
Why
cause
are Republicans acting crazy?
Yeah.
Are they crazy Republicans?
These crazy Republicans, I'm telling you what, if I'm a crazy Republican, then I'm wondering who the party thinks is normal. Because I'm sorry, I just wanted Republicans to secure the border, to protect our gun rights, to protect the Constitution, to protect our natural rights. And that makes me an extremist. That makes me a crazy Republican. Because he had another quote that was very interesting to me that he said that when talking about primary challengers, he said, "I'm going to take them to the deep end of the pool and drown them." And then he lost. Which makes me really happy. I mean, he didn't lose his primary, not yet anyway.
I mean, everybody but him does not want him. His people don't want him. He doesn't see that because he doesn't even go out and show.
You have one of the best funded incumbent Republican congressmen in the state of Texas can't even get 50% of the vote.
He just has the funding.
Yep.
He has the establishment. That doesn't mean he has the people.
Yeah, and he's afraid to show up because
the
really
people don't like him.
He's weak on the issues, and he's weak in his record. And the people, whenever he would have to be asked about his record in public, I don't think he has answers.
He can't answer that because Texas, what are we, border security and guns, and that's something he doesn't care about. When I was looking at his voting record, he kind of is always the congressman that embarrasses Texas.
Yeah.
He's a one vote kind of standing in the way.
Yeah, it's him and Cornyn.
It's like, are you guys really Republicans?
Yeah.
At all?
And that's what drove me crazy about it in the beginning is because he's one of the reasons why I embarked in this journey in the first place is he's one of the worst votes Republicans have in Congress that nobody knows about.
Yeah.
There are congressmen, Republicans who, if they sneeze wrong, it's front page news. Tony Gonzalez votes with Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi, 12 times. Nobody talks about it.
Nobody even bats an eye.
Nobody outside of Texas knows Tony's name. And that's something that I really wanted to change because the way that you fight people like this is you put the light on them because they can't stand on their own once you do that.
You can't stand on lies. That's what it is. Lies will never stand. When you're standing by truth, you're going to stand because God is truth.
Yeah, and you can get away with a lot of stuff in the dark.
Yeah, but it always comes back to light.
Yes.
And I loved your quote. I think I wrote it down. Let me see. Where is this? I can't find all my things. But essentially, you're saying how you're going to out-primary them. That's how you destroy the rhinos.
Yeah.
And you're doing it. How do you feel?
It feels like we sent our message loud and clear. And I talked to some folks earlier that day because, they were asking how I felt. I'm like, I feel like we did what we could. We raised a lot of money. We went out. We did like 50 campaign stops in 20 cities, just really hitting the ground game hard. Our volunteers work really hard. I felt like we did the best we could with like what we were given and who we were fighting. So I was still, but I wasn't 100% sure. Like, at the end of the day, you're fighting a big money establishment. But I said, it reminds me of the end of 300 because this is the entire point of doing this from day one was to remind Xerxes that he can bleed, that he's not invincible. Your votes have consequences. And in this case, those consequences are me.
I feel like something politicians need to understand. Yes, these establishment, these elitists might give you the money, but we vote for you.
Yeah. And not only that, but the inverse is they work for you.
You represent us.
Supposed to be like
you represent us, and then you gaslight us when we're trying to hold you accountable. No, we're not conspiracy theorists. We're just onto you.
Yeah, it's the and talking about these crazy Republicans. I got to fight crazy Republicans. Those are your constituents.
You're getting mad at your people.
Aren't happy.
Yeah, no, I say the name Tony and people cringe.
Yeah, the people who pay attention, and that's the important part. Is I think the biggest thing we have to focus on doing is finding the Republicans who vote, especially some Republicans who are willing to vote in a primary runoff like this, a special runoff election, and just make sure that they know what Tony's done. Because he can attack me all sorts of ways. He can attack me personally. He can attack me just all sorts of
But you can attack him with the facts.
The only thing I've ever attacked him on, besides, poking the bear a little bit, the only thing I've truly ever attacked him on, in mailers and in advertising, anything, is his record.
Yeah.
I don't have to make up lies about
it's
somebody.
right there.
If his record is the only thing I care about.
You look at his voting history. Yeah. It's right there. What are you planning besides guns? What is another initiative that you want to prioritize that's different from Tony? What are some legislation things you're thinking about doing, probably collabing with Chip Roy or different Congress people? What are you thinking?
Absolutely. Chip Roy is one that I don't know what I can say. That's one I'm looking forward to working with, I can say. Because instead of fighting his bills in committees to secure the border, I'm going to be working with him on it. Because really, that is one of the biggest priorities of District 23. Is we have the biggest border frontage with Mexico of any district in the country by a good margin.
And most of our congressional people in those districts are mostly funded by the cartel. I do know I'm very close with Myra Flores. She's battling for Texas District 34. Definitely would recommend you talk to her. She just got recently endorsed by Trump. Amazing woman. Her opponent, I believe his name is Vicente Gonzalez, criticizes her, calls her like derogatory names for being Mexican. But I do know, I don't remember if it was Vicente or the opponent against Cassie, but they have ties with the cartel. They get funded. And these are Democrats. And I'm saying a lot of times South Texas gets forgotten.
Yeah.
But we are so close to the border, and they're bringing in so many people. And I see it in McAllen, Texas. And it's so bad. And they don't care.
Yeah. And the stuff that you hear, if you actually, Tony, go out to these places and you talk to the people on the ground,
We're frustrated.
well, not only they're frustrated, but they all have personal stories of, for example, like they have ranch houses and things where they have to turn the lights off at night. They have to use blackout curtains because they don't want to be seen as, a house or something that somebody can come, break into. There's, barns and all sorts of things that they'll just open it up in the morning and there was somebody sleeping there, and wires getting cut, just all sorts of craziness associated with living in a border town now.
Yeah.
And it's getting worse. It's not getting better.
I think I really enjoyed Abbott's position and kind of making it also blue states issues too, because they didn't think it was an issue. And now they're screaming, crying. And I know Tony also is blocking and not assisting Abbott in that initiative as well.
Yeah, because you have places like New York City that are saying, well, what are you talking about? We don't have the funding or the infrastructure to take care of these people. It's like, how the fuck do you think Del Rio feels,
We're South Texas, guys, we're broke.
Yeah, it's this.
And we're not racist. The Valley, we're 99% Hispanic. That's not the issue, guys. And it's not Hispanics, Mexicans. It's not our family coming over. It is it's people from Syria, from Middle Eastern countries that are coming over.
But it's also who pays for it. Who pays for that? We don't have the infrastructure to handle it. New York City doesn't have it. One of the biggest metropolises in the northern hemisphere. Like, really? Seriously? You're gonna put that on, Alpine to take care of all these people or to process all these people? It's
I know
ridiculous.
that Chip Roy's suggestion was about kind of having, I think I wrote it down, I can't find it. The bill would expel migrants once the detention capacity in the country was full, due to his claims that those expulsions would amount to eliminating asylum. Gonzalez called Roy's bill un-American and un-Christian.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't think there's anything un-American and not Christian about wanting to secure your own border. And this is something that drives me crazy because, I'm not opposed to legal immigration. I just think it needs to be done properly. And
I agree.
I think a lot of our immigration system is burdened by having to process so many illegals. It's
Why is it more difficult to get into a club than it is to vote or coming into our country?
It's insane. But the one of the biggest things that drives me crazy is people who think that America was founded, like, we're a nation of immigrants. We owe immigrants. We owe them a place to be. It's like, no. A lot of this stuff is brand new. This stuff is, propaganda from the last 100 years.
Yes.
That give us you're tired, you're weary, your huddled masses. That wasn't the founding fathers that said that. No. This is all socialist stuff that's come out of the last 120 years that people are somehow retconning as what this country was founded on. It's not correct.
I think we strayed so far away from our founding. Yeah. Something I have a huge issue with. That's why our Constitution, our founders knew that man was corrupted and that would occur. That's why they say, once we have representatives that uphold to our values, destroy it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, a republic if you can keep it.
If they're not representing our values. And that's what Tony's not doing. He's not representing our values, and he's gaslighting us.
Yeah.
Calling us crazy Republicans. No, we're mad.
We're not crazy Republicans for expecting you to vote the way you said you were going to.
To do your job.
And now
we're paying you. Do your job.
Now the way he's talking about it on Fox News and the way he's talking about it in his advertising, his political mailers and things.
And not talking to
he's
people.
Talking about it as if he was voting the way he said he was going to. It's like, no. The whole reason we're pissed off in the first place is because you spend more time fighting your own people than you do fighting for them.
You side more with the Democrats than you do with us.
Yeah, that's a problem. I'm sorry, I don't want my congressman doing that. So
neither do I. I think if you want to be a centrist politician, you identify as an independent, and you stay out of the Republican Party. Like, if you're not going to be pro-gun, secure our border, pro-common sense, you don't belong in our party. And
what really further kind of irritates me about that particular point, and especially something on the gun side of things, because I can speak to that pretty confidently. Tony had voted against a red flag law initiative before Uvalde. He voted against that, claiming it was a violation of the Second Amendment, and just, obviously I would never vote for this. This is anti-gun. And then as soon as Uvalde happened, and it was politically inconvenient, or at least in his mind, as a moderate, politically inconvenient to continue protecting the Second Amendment, then he voted on the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, bipartisan. He voted on that and claimed he would do it, I'd do it again and twice on Sunday. and then claimed all sorts of personal reasons with his, personal history and things. That's like, I don't care about your personal allegories. I'm sorry it happened to you.
I actually have family that lives in Uvalde. My own cousin attends at university. My uncle has a closet full of guns.
Yeah.
In those situations, all we looked at was poor law enforcement, not correct funding, and I hate the fact that politicians have better security than our students.
Yeah. And on top of that, like I don't know how much you want to delve into it, but a lot of the issue that with the way that was handled is poor law enforcement leadership, because there were a lot of cops there that I'm sure would have gone in given the word, but they were told specifically to treat it like a barricaded suspect and not an active shooter. So the protocol, to my understanding of all this stuff, the protocol on active shooter is you get there, you go in.
Yes.
You hear shots, you go toward the gunfire.
Yeah.
That you go toward the gunfire and you shoot at the threat until the threat is no longer there.
Especially with children.
Exactly. Because lives are quite literally on the line.
I would literally, personally, would rather die than a little kid.
Yeah, and especially if you signed up for that, which is why
yeah,
that's why we owe a lot to our law enforcement that
100%.
are willing to do that. But that in that particular circumstance, they were told barricaded suspect, which means form a perimeter, don't let anyone in, and they just went through this whole process for an hour. I've been through.
I saw that
town.
footage. It's awful.
The law enforcement training center is like 3 minutes away from the school.
What was the response time? Do you know that?
I don't know the exact response time, because they do have a timeline of events. I know I've looked at it. They have a timeline of events from when the first cop showed up to when the threat was ended, and it is an infuriating amount of time. Everybody's seen the videos of the guys, in the hallways, putting hand sanitizer on.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, the active shooter
that is
still
embarrassing.
alive.
My own crazy father would have gone in there faster than the law enforcement.
And it's upsetting.
Bad.
Because, when you have shit leadership like that, that's what gives, not only do people die, but that's what really jades the entire country about law enforcement in general. Is, they see that on TV and they're like, well, why the hell are we funding them?
But that's also what the media also runs with, because there's always a good guy with the gun.
Yeah.
And nobody likes to talk about those stories.
And those stories, and it's kind of it's a catch-22, because a lot of those stories, like Elijah Dickin, right? The guy who stopped the Indiana mall shooting, that guy was going to go on a massacre in a food court. And it's one kid with a Glock stopped that before it became a mass casualty event. And it happens time and time again, but because it doesn't turn into 30 dead on the news, nobody hears about it. And the media sure as hell won't talk about it because it doesn't fit the message.
It doesn't fit their agenda.
Exactly.
And you even see this with, I think, all the trans people going up and shooting Christians.
Yeah,
the church here in Texas.
The Joel Osteen thing, right?
And then also in Nashville, too, where they shot up and they started covering up those manifestos. You know damn well that if a white Christian might have liked Trump's tweet in 2014, that his manifesto would have been immediately out because it fits the agenda.
And we've seen it happen. And shout out to the boys at Nashville Metro PD. Those guys are rad. They went in there and they took care of business.
Yeah, they did, and that's how to handle it.
Yeah.
What are you planning on, when that does happen in the media? What is going to be your response when you are our congressman?
Well, for one thing, like you kind of hit on this a little bit earlier, you have to make schools hard targets. Yes. You've even seen it in manifestos and things in the past where people are, they're plotting out, I want to do a mass casualty event. I want to end as much life as possible. These are really demented individuals. People who, they determine on their target. They determine their target based on the response time of police, the predicted response time, and whether or not they have armed security officers. You've actually seen that before in manifestos.
Yeah.
So if you have armed resource officers there in schools, that I would say that would dissuade a lot of people.
Like the way we protect our politicians.
Yeah.
I even know, I think I don't remember what her name is. She's a silly one, and I believe it might be New York. I can't remember the state. She's, I think, a local position, and she was very advocate about ACAB, and she uses her public funding for her personal private security.
You telling me a politician is a hypocrite? I don't know. Sounds like a conspiracy theory.
It sounds like a good guy with a gun helps, but not for us.
No, because it's either too expensive to protect our kids or it doesn't fit the narrative.
That is true.
And you hate to see these people putting politics above lives.
It's profits over people.
Yep.
That's what it is. Kind of to segue, besides talking about Tony, I saw a very interesting news article about you. Apparently, you make jokes about veterans' suicide.
Apparently, that's what I've been told. This is an irritating one for me personally.
Well, Giffords, I can't even. Courage to Fight Gun
Gabrielle
Violence.
Giffords, yeah.
Well, you're a beautiful human being. I think she was at the State of the Union yesterday. Show you that.
Oh, very nice. Well, she's looking healthy.
Ending gun violence. That's what she's going to be doing. She's put tonight. I attended President Joe Biden's The Most Amazing President speech where he confronted our country's gun violence epidemic head on. Too many Americans are dying every day, and I know he will never stray from our mission to protect communities from gun violence.
I saw a lot of the gun control crowd was actually upset that he didn't talk more about gun violence. There's the number one epidemic in the country, and like I saw he was taking a lot of fire on Twitter or X this morning. That's still weird for me. It's still Twitter in my mind, but
what was the joke? I mean, I think
Yeah.
let me read the quote. If it makes everyone in the room feel better, I often think about putting a gun in my mouth, so I'm basically an honorary veteran.
which is funny because if you use anything outside of that 6 seconds, the context for that joke is so laughable because I'm talking about a joke I didn't make. So we were talking about it a little bit earlier because they're distributing this clip like it's some sort of like, oh, gotcha. Yeah. It's so irritating because it's not a hot mic moment. It's my podcast. I own part of that podcast. I agreed to put that out because I'm talking about a joke that my veteran friends, which by the way, like everybody but one person at that table besides me was a veteran. The guy directly to my left was a Purple Heart combat vet. They were the ones who were putting me up to saying this joke.
Because it's true.
And I was quoting. Yeah, and there is like there's a dark truth to it, which is why it's kind of funny, especially in the veteran circles. Like, they're the ones
because
who
we
get
get
a kick
it.
out of
Yeah.
But they put me up to that joke, and I was telling the joke, saying like, this is the joke they wanted me to make, but I said it was too far. But this was the joke because earlier that day, I gave a speech. I was asked to give a speech opening up a veteran suicide prevention panel because we were there at SHOT Show, and I was asked to do it by a couple friends of mine, and was happy to do it, obviously, because that's a cause that we've helped with in the past, and it's something that's important to us. We talk about it all the time on my podcast because it is a serious issue, and people don't get enough help.
Yeah, no, they don't.
And it is so ironic because it's something that we've worked on so much personally, and something that if you know anything about me or if you followed me online for any period of time, you know it's something I talk about a lot. For them to use that out of context as if, I'm somehow apparently I hate veterans. I hate veterans so much. I go home and sleep next to one every night. It's so annoying. Yeah.
You're gonna marry one. You hate him so much.
Of course.
Well, I actually thought it was hilarious, and I know my brother would have laughed at that joke too, whether it was in context or out of context. My brother, to give you some background, I know we were talking about it earlier. Yeah. My brother was in the Army from Fort Bliss, and he committed suicide on September 21st, 2:46 p.m. I did also reach out to Tony Gonzalez's team, and I got ghosted. They didn't care. And that's when I've done more of my research about the military, and I recognize that they don't care. They view you as a number. Over 20, I think it's 22 or 17, I don't know what the numbers have changed.
It's actually a lot higher, unfortunately. I think it's in the 40s.
Kill themselves every day, and they don't care.
Yep. Because unfortunately, if you know anything about the VA and the way the government and the military works on stuff like this, they are way more interested in making sure that your box is checked versus making sure you actually get the care that you need.
Yeah.
They're a bunch of box checkers. They're bureaucrats.
Also, you're a debt to them, too. I've talked to so many people in the military, and they've even said, like, hey, once we leave, we're trying to get help from the VA, they view us as debt.
Yep.
What do you think about that? What are you planning on doing about this issue?
There was one comedian that put and again, not to get canceled for another joke out of context, but it was a comedian who made a joke that I thought was funny because there was a lot of dark truth to it. Somebody asked him about the military, like, what are your thoughts on the military? And he stops for a moment and he said, the best move the United States government ever did financially was realize that it's cheaper to worship veterans than it is to help them.
Yeah, that's something I did when I was doing my research, because I'm wanting to start my foundation attacking military. But when I was doing my research about like their suicide prevention, they waste a lot of money trying to tell you suicide awareness, it exists, and do nothing. There's also zero lack of research. We have to understand a civilian and a military brain and person is going to be affected very differently. A PTSD that you might get from like social anxiety from civilian life is going to be very different to what our military experiences. And there's lack of research to also show what can help these people, because they're going to need different measures. Lack of funding. They don't care.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to like even different things like reintegration, right? Different.
Well,
different
actually,
things like that.
hold on. Before lack of funding, they just don't. They have the money. They just don't care. Sorry.
Yeah, like reintegration stuff. Because a lot of these people they're used to a very structured life, right? And they've experienced a lot with friends of theirs that they've gone through multiple years of sometimes very severe trauma. And then the military just shits them out into the quote unquote real world, the civilian world, and it's a hard adjustment.
Yeah, and there's not that way of helping them adjust either. There's so many. I've heard so many stories of men that suffer from PTSD and will wake up trying to strangle their wives.
Yeah, and that's difficult. Like, and unfortunately, one thing that the VA does, again, because they're not concerned necessarily, and I don't mean to shit on all of the VA, because there's a lot of doctors and people providing care there that actually do care.
Yes, of course.
But as the organization in general,
the whole, yes.
They're more interested in checking boxes than they are, making sure you actually get care. So they'll load you up full of drugs. A lot of times, drugs you don't need. They'll dope you up, and then they'll send you on your merry way. And a lot of times, this I have actually had personal experience with people that I know, who they'll go to the VA and they say, "Look, I need help. Like, I'm not doing okay," right?
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Okay, cool. What is it? It's March 10th. Okay, come see us in July 7th. How's that sound?" It's like, well, it sounds like it may not be a problem in July 7th. And it's
even
it's
the suicide hotline too doesn't work. The VA military one, they put a lot of money into that. And I read when I was doing my studying about that, I saw that like people will call, nobody picks up, or it's left, and they will kill themselves.
Yeah, and that. Oh God, it's insane. That's why the hotlines and everything are nice, but what you really need is one of the best coping mechanisms. There's two coping mechanisms that I say haven't failed veterans. The VA's failed veterans, the military's failed veterans, politicians have failed veterans, the system has failed veterans. The only two things that haven't is dark humor and camaraderie.
Yep.
Because the camaraderie that you have in the military between those guys. That's something that can really keep them around. That's why we keep saying, like, dude, just call your friends.
But the thing that I think that they're lacking is a form of a union.
Yeah.
They don't have that.
Yep.
You need to be able to group your veterans and your military together and keep the VA and the military accountable.
Yeah.
And maybe sometimes we got to tell our kids, don't join the damn military. In the sense of they're going to just send you to Ukraine, they're just going to send you to Israel, and they don't care about your life.
Yeah, just remember that when you sign on the dotted line, and it says, "Oh, don't worry, we'll take care of you," there's a big asterisk next to that.
They'll take care of your funeral. And I know that because I had to sit and do that. That's the only time that they'll care. And it's like another duty and task to them.
Yeah.
It's normal. They're so desensitized to that. They think it's normal. It's not normal.
Yeah.
Those are people. Those are people who literally sacrifice their lives, their times with their family, so that we have our freedoms. And lately, I feel like our government and our politicians just use them as pawns.
Yeah. And the best years of their life and their bodies a lot of times.
Yes,
People leave
and wear
the
them
military
out.
broken.
Yeah, and they
Even
don't care.
Even if you've never been shot, you've never been blown up.
My
you leave
brother's
broken.
knees were shattered.
Yeah.
From rucking.
Yep. Yeah, and it's upsetting that, and that's one of the things to actually answer the question is one of the committees that we've been looking at getting on is the Committee for Veterans Affairs, because that's something that I feel like we can actually make a difference. Because San Antonio is military city, USA.
Yes.
A lot of work I've done, especially with the people like the Black Rifle Crew and people like that. People that actually do good work in the private sector, and they know a lot of the things that need to be overhauled. So I'd like to work with a lot of those people and see if there's some bipartisan stuff we can even do, because this shouldn't be a partisan issue.
It shouldn't.
It
really shouldn't.
Regardless of even whether or not you wanted to send them there in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of anything, these are people who need to be taken care of.
They're your patriots.
Yeah.
They're the ones fighting for our freedoms, and I feel like we might celebrate them, but let's also respect their lives. And remember, these are people.
Yeah, because there's, I mean, shoot, a friend of mine, people probably wouldn't mind me telling the story. He saw some serious combat,
Yeah.
like serious stuff, early days, and the vast majority of the people that he served with are all dead now. And
Yeah, I've heard.
just recently, it was more through suicide. The number had officially ticked over where it's now the vast majority are suicide versus
That's the
anything
most
else.
majority of the deaths in military, and also the suicide prevention, I guess, thing that they have is a complete joke.
Yeah.
Complete joke. There was two. I think I forgot what their title are, but there's two. I think they're called first class staff. I don't remember the names. SFC. I remember that the acronym being SFCs. There was two of them there. While for some reason my brother,
Sergeant First Class.
Sergeant First Class. Yeah. There you go. Well, my brother, to kind of give you some context and give the viewers some context, my sister-in-law passed away July 11th. My brother, they were high school sweethearts. They've been dating since they were like freshmen in high school. My brother immediately when he turned 19 went to the military. While he was in AIT, they literally got married. They just got eloped. Guys get married, get young, have babies. Well, they were like each other's ride or dies. Like they had already moved from the Valley to El Paso, and so he was just doing his military stuff there when she died in her sleep. She had basically diabetes, and she had like an increase of insulin, right? Increase of insulin, and she passed away in her sleep.
Jesus.
Yes, and it's traumatic. And I found out while I was in Florida. It was crazy. I had to help my brother plan that funeral too. It was insane. And then I finally come back to school. I'm at a student government meeting when I get a phone call from like my brother's friend's mom, who's frantic, and she's the one that tells me my brother like just committed suicide. Me and my family immediately just pack up our bags. I'm in San Antonio. My mom's in the Valley. She immediately packs her bags, drives 4 hours, picks me up, and in the night we go to El Paso. When we go to El Paso, I'm talking to all the political connections I have because I know that's how I'm going to try to get answers. I reached out to Tony's team. But while I was there, what I found very odd is they allowed us to go to the apartment that my brother killed himself at. It wasn't locked up. It wasn't taped up. We were able to go in there. They didn't look like they were investigating anything at all. There was knives and like things that he could have easily hurt himself there. My brother's suicide note was right there, and he had left it right there in front of them. What occurred was my brother like walks in. Well, they had him in a. Let me backtrack. They had him in a mental vicinity off base. I don't know if that's normal protocol. They told our family that he was going to be there for 2 weeks. He ends up not being there for 2 weeks, and now he's at his apartment for some reason. And now they're telling my mom they're just going to get his clothes and take him to the bunkers, or like. And so I'm a little confused. And then while I'm at student government, I just get a phone call letting me know that my brother committed suicide. And we immediately go, and like in the night, I think we arrived like at 7 a.m. to El Paso. We drove the whole night. And when I thought it was just very odd that they allowed us to go into that room, like the apartment. My brother's suicide note is there. There's the knives. There's everything there. What I was told was that my brother walks in, hugs his friend, walks into the room. That friend had told him previously, 30 minutes ago, where his firearm was. I don't know if they knew where the firearm was or that was being hidden. I don't know.
And while he's on suicide watch.
Yes, he's on suicide watch. Yeah. This like girl knows it too. They allow my brother for some reason. He just hugs her. They allow her for some reason to walk into the room where Jackie died. He walks in and he's only in there for 10 seconds. He grabs the gun that she helped hid in the fitted sheet on the left side, grabs it, takes himself out, shoots himself, and we were able to go into that room and see it for ourselves. You want to know what I thought was very interesting too? They discarded him of all his clothes, and they put it underneath my sister-in-law's like huge, like clean clothes. They put his bloody clothes underneath there. His boots were there too, and then even the guys at the SFCs, I have a picture of it. His hat was off. It's like they were like in a rush. And I don't know how to, like, we found his dog tags. I don't know why that wasn't on his person. Like, we're missing also a lot of his things. When I try to get answers, I don't get any. I tried talking to Tony and his veterans caseworker. Got ghosted, too.
Unfortunately, that's something that I've heard a lot. And that, I'm not going to lie, like, I'm not saying this for politics purposes. It surprised me. It genuinely did. Because that wasn't something I'd really looked into as far as Tony's record. There's no really way to look into it. but you just hear stories of people that come up and say like, look, I was in the military from this time to this time. I had these issues. Tony said he would help me.
And he didn't.
And he didn't. And he talked a good game to get elected. And he said, as soon as he got in, I got handed to a staffer. And then 2 months later, I got ghosted. My back's still fucked. I need help. I can't do my job. I can't do any of these other things. And I hear it again and again and again. And as somebody who I would have figured as somebody who did serve in the military, 20 years as a Navy cryptologist, I think, but still, like as a 20-year vet, you'd think that would be a high priority of his. And it's been really disappointing, the amount of stories I've heard like that.
And we still have no answers. No. I've reached out so many times and got ghosted. And I just find that very frustrating. You're in Veteran City and you're trying to attack Brendan Herrera for making a joke that holds truth. I just find it so upset. Like, I'm going to go back to, I'm just so annoyed and frustrated that they get mad about a dark joke. Why are we getting mad about a funny joke? You should be mad that it holds substance and holds truth.
Yeah, and the reason it holds truth, partially, the blame falls on the people who aren't doing anything.
No, they don't
It's
care.
your job to do something, and they're not doing anything.
And I find it just so disgusting that it's just, I think they just so like fixate on the fact of the numbers. They don't recognize that, and it's only increasing, but that number, that one person was my brother.
Yeah.
That person was my everything. And he was on suicide watch with 2 SFCs there. And they were just talking to the girl in the living room, and I allowed him freely to walk into the room where they know his wife died. And they knew there was firearms. That's a joke. That's a joke. You telling me you care about our future, our Patriots, our soldiers? No, Nikki Haley, you just want to send them to war.
Yeah. And again, and the number, again, everybody knows the 22 push-ups a day thing, because everything's about awareness, but it's not about actually
doing anything.
Yeah, because the number's a lot higher.
We know it exists. What are we going to do about it? I don't need more awareness. Let's have some action.
Yeah.
Tired of hearing about awareness.
But it's easier to correct people on how they talk about it. And it's easier to be politically correct. And I can't believe you'd say such a thing. I can't believe you haven't fucking done anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the frustrating, I guess, conundrum when it comes to politicians, is that it's easier to grandstand than it is to solve.
They're all just selfish narcissists. I'd say we gave ugly people mics in D.C.
Yeah.
Maybe ugly physically and in their hearts too. And I pray for all of them because I know that they're getting deceived by Satan. But I would just encourage and I just hope our politicians don't really prioritize the profits and prioritize people.
Because regardless of whether or not they're on your team, you want your representatives to do well because you want the country to do well.
Exactly.
Right? I would love it if my enemies were successful in making the country better. It's like they wouldn't be my enemies if that's what they're doing. I
remember when I was like 12 and I was talking to old people about politics. This is how I do. I was a nerd. But this old lady, she told me something that like always has stuck with me because she was criticizing how a lot of people hated Trump at the time.
Yeah.
And she told me, I don't understand why people want him to fail. It's like going on a plane and hoping your pilot crashes.
Right. It's like, you're on that train too, whether you like it or not. Like, we're all here together.
Even with Joe Biden, like, I would hope he'd be good.
Yeah.
Do you like Joe Biden?
I know he's not exactly a fan of me very much. But it's while I think it's funny when there's gaffes and things, Joe Biden, falls down the stairs again for the 18th time, and he was able to get through all of his pudding this morning. That's, fantastic. Good job, Grandpa. Like, it's still a little, it's concerning, not on the, because I don't want to see our president fail.
I agree.
Because it makes us weak on a national stage, and it's embarrassing.
Not just on a national stage, but on a global stage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. Like,
we look weak.
And it drives me crazy that for the sake of political capital, they're going to let this, just global display of elder abuse continue. And they're going to let him run for another 4 years.
Can't he even run?
Well, I don't think he's going to run anywhere, but he's going to walk for president.
Go get some ice cream instead.
Did you see the Babylon Bee article that came out yesterday for the State of the Union?
What did it say?
White House officials clarify that the fence going up around the Capitol is to ensure that Joe Biden doesn't wander off during speech.
The way that he just looks like, where do I go? I think Jack was showing me that Trump was like watching the State of the Union address and like putting Snapchat filters on them.
Yeah. So, that's how, little stuff like that is how you know Trump still runs some of his social media, because it's like, that is
Based.
Oh my God.
Based. I think it's hilarious. I find it actually so like awesome being able to see our leaders actually be human.
I think it's only funny because it's him. Like, you
True.
wouldn't expect that out of, like, if that was a meme page, it's like, okay, 4 of 10.
But the fact that you see it's our former president.
Trump. It's like, oh my God.
No, I think when I saw him post like when the primaries were still going on, of DeSantis on a rhino, and being like, I don't remember what the caption was, but I thought it was a meme page.
Yeah.
And when I had initially seen like a screenshot of it, I was like, that can't be real. And then I check his account and it's real.
2024 is getting interesting. It's wild. And
I kind of want to put my tinfoil hat on. I want to ask, what's your favorite conspiracy theory?
Ooh. So I've actually talked about some of these publicly.
Mm-hmm.
I get into, I have a series on my YouTube channel. It's just like historic assassinations and things, just because I think, it's an interesting way to blend a gun with history and be able to talk about history and certain things. There's one conspiracy theory though, because everybody knows JFK, right? That's there's a lot of theories about that, and obviously my theory is correct. Like, there's so many, it's not obvious because nobody agrees on it. There's one theory that I kind of went into thinking it was crazy. And then the more I researched it and the more I really looked into it, I'm like, oh, shit, this is real. This happened. Damn it. It's JFK being killed by the FBI.
Oh, I believe that.
Yeah. And it's one of those things you're like, okay, I could believe that the government did it, but still, it sounds a little wacky. It's like, FBI killed you. Okay.
I got my tinfoil hat on, bro. I was watching Alex Jones' old podcast with Joe Rogan from years ago, and I was just like, this holds so much truth.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm kind of retarded.
I was like, the government can't gaslight
treasure.
me. Yeah, he's amazing. I was like, the government cannot gaslight me. It just can't. I believe those conspiracy theories all the time.
All of the things from most people don't know, this part is documented. Like, the FBI sent him basically a note saying, if you don't kill yourself, we will, that sort of thing.
Oh my gosh.
An anonymous letter, days prior.
I think they do that with all our politicians and our celebrities that get out of line.
What is that? The Bill, what's his name? There's a comedian that had a thing about that. The people actually, Bill Hicks, where they said that the first thing that they do if you're elected president is they bring you into a dark room, they roll down a projector screen, and then they show you the JFK assassination and say, any questions?
I mean, I believe it. That's why I always say, hey, yo, the good presidents get assassinated.
It's don't fuck with the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
It's not good for longevity. You'd be better off eating 12 Twinkies a day.
What about, how are you feeling about possibly being in DC soon?
I hate it. I hate the idea of it. This is truly.
You're not excited to be a politician?
This is truly how I view it as public service. DC is one of my most hated cities in the country.
That's why we need you there.
I'd rather survive a week in New Orleans unarmed and alone than a day in DC. I hate it. It's and like we were talking about before, I think it's cool. The history of it's very cool. There's a power to the place. There really is.
I love the history to it.
The museums are great. The monuments are great. There's a gravitas, I think is a better word. And last time I went, actually, I was doing some meetings for this run, and it was the first time I've looked at the Capitol in a very different way. I remember standing. I just took a jog out in the rain.
Oh,
and
I
just
love that.
stand in front of the Capitol for a second, just fuck.
What did I sign myself up for?
And it was funny because actually there was a Capitol police officer that was there in front while that was happening. While I was just sitting there staring at it, and I'm like, all right. So I go to walk back to my hotel, and he just happens to walk up, and I'm thinking because I took a picture too while I was there. And I think he's going to come up to say something like, hey, what are you doing here? Do you mind stepping off to the sidewalk or something? I don't really know.
Yeah.
I just assume, a cop's coming up to me.
Yeah.
I fucked up somehow. But he just comes up and he says, good to see you, sir. I hope to see you here a lot more often.
Oh,
I was
he was a fan.
Yeah, it was just kind of a cool moment. I'm like,
that's God telling you belong here.
Core memory.
That's God telling you belong here. I'm a firm believer that God doesn't make mistakes or accidents is, everything's intentional. Even like the hardest thing you've experienced in life, your breakdowns, your mental breakdowns, those are intentional. I think those are always just teaching and learning moments. So when I see that, it's because God is telling you this is where you belong.
And Jordan Peterson had a thing that I really liked that I don't know if it was a quote from him or somebody he was quoting, but he said something along the lines of, I'll paraphrase it, a man should carry the exact amount of burden he's capable of.
Yes.
And so I think that's definitely something I've probably bitten off a little more than I can chew on this one. But it feels like this was the right burden, especially after this runoff. We've proven that we're not crazy. We actually have a chance, and we are sending a message. The entire point of this was to send a message.
And
I think
sending
it's
one.
received loud and clear, judging by the photos of Tony in the last 2 days. He looked like he was crying yesterday morning.
Good.
And
we got to keep him crying. We got to get these rhinos crying. And I do agree with your philosophy in the sense of we got to primary them and run them off.
For sure. And there's real, even if we don't win, even if we don't successfully primary them, but we scare them enough, you can actually scare them straight.
Yeah, you can. Because they want their seat. They're going to realize, oh, this is going to risk it. I can actually lose this. You can't allow these politicians to get comfortable.
Yes, because when they get comfortable, then you get shit votes. I was talking to a congressman yesterday, a Republican congressman, and I said, well, I just want to basically be a better coworker for you than Tony ever has. And he's like, oh, you've already given us a gift. He's already gotten so much more right wing since you announced. It's not even funny. It's like now he's actually starting to play ball, but it's too late.
It is too late. He's in the incumbent, and everybody's already pissed. His people are pissed.
He's showing his true colors. And it's just like the Uvalde thing we were talking earlier. It's like when he thought it was politically inconvenient, then he switched his tune and voted for gun control. Now that he's getting challenged on it, he's switching his tune again and trying to be, look at how conservative
He's political.
I am.
He only cares about the profits and the votes, and he wants that seat. That's why you need to truly stand on your principle and stand by truth. Because even then, when you're standing on your truth, when things like COVID happen and you're standing on your principle, you're not afraid when people call you crazy.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it just sucks to see it so transparent in stuff like this. But I mean, it's nice that, as much as we throw shade on the political system, the two-party system, and everything like that, it's nice to show that even within that, heavily corrupt, within the swamp, within all this stuff, we still have the power to send a very clear message to these people to where they're scared. Anytime you can make a sitting politician scared, I feel like you're probably doing a good thing.
No, I agree.
In a nonviolent sense.
Of course.
Don't threaten anybody.
No. I kind of see the political parties as more of like the people kind of just preach them on like their favorite football team. When I do a lot of my research with like the Republican and Democrat Party, I really like the Republican Party just because we're not afraid to ask questions. We like truth. So that's why I'm more on the right side. But even then, I can also see these rhinos who are just profited by the green. Yeah. So that's why I always try to stress to people, we are not as divided as the world likes to make it seem. The media is lying to you. The Republicans and Democrats I might have my tinfoil hat on. The Republicans and Democrats all get paid by the same corporations. They don't care about their own they don't have their own values. That's why you see them flip-flop anytime to what's convenient because they're so focused on the green. Not marijuana. I'm talking about money.
Yeah. The 2022 Congress brought to you by Pfizer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They care about the profits. Even when you look at Nikki Haley, I always make a joke of like, if I were to talk to her, I'd be like, hey, yo, what should I invest in?
Yeah, and it's the joke I always made with Nikki Haley is like she always leaves cookie and milk out for Raytheon on Christmas. Like, make sure she has a good next year.
I knew she was going to go pretty far, to be honest. A lot of people knocked her off in the beginning, but I knew she was going to be smart. She kind of reminds me of Hillary Clinton. She's a smart politician.
Yeah, I didn't like her from the South Carolina days. I never trusted her, and
I don't trust you either. But that's what makes a great politician.
I don't understand how she stayed in the race that long, or why she stayed in the race that long. Because it just seemed like it was a giant waste of money the entire
establishment. Way. It was just to prove a point. I think she's probably preparing herself for 2028.
It would have proved a point had she not continued to lose every single race since.
She's gonna cling on to the fact that I think she won.
She won DC, I think.
She's gonna cling on to that.
It's like, wow, that is the message received loud and clear. You won DC. Wow.
The elitist.
The feds like you.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, no, Nikki Haley is a little crazy. That was an interesting thing to see. I thought she was going to drop out after South Carolina.
I did too, because, I mean, you get shellacked in your home state. I mean, she couldn't even take her home county. You know, these people you grew up around, they don't even want you. Like,
Who was your favorite candidate when all of them were running? Who did you like?
I think it was always. I kind of looked at it through a different lens because it was always inevitable to me. Like DeSantis chose a terrible time to run. You can't expect to win a war against one of the most popular Republican presidential candidates who's ever of this century. It's very bare minimum.
You literally changed the Republican Party.
Yeah, and like you thought you could compete with that. It's like no, that was never gonna work.
With the "I'm Trump but nice" campaign, bro. It's like telling me I got the real brand and the Walmart generic brand together. I'm gonna get the real thing.
He's a charisma vacuum in a few ways, but I do like a lot of his policy on paper. Like he was a good governor. I really liked him as a governor. I think it was not his time.
I agree.
It was not his time. I did like the way Vivek ran things.
I love Vivek.
Vivek was, he was awesome. I did an interview with him actually too.
Oh, how was that?
Very sharp dude.
No,
sharp.
he's so smart. Yeah. I met him when I was in DC, and I remember I was watching him as he was getting interviewed, and I think the interviewer was asking him like, how you're the voice for millennial, like what are you gonna do for the millennials, blah blah blah. And I heard his answer, and when he finally got out, I told him, look, you don't have the voice for millennials. You might be a millennial, but your voice speaks to our generation.
Yeah.
You are the first politician or person running for office, and I can say this because I was around all people my age. First time I heard him, he's the only person I got up and I clapped. And you could feel that he's genuine.
The thing that pissed me off about especially people's response to Vivek's campaign, where I've never heard of this guy, therefore I can't trust him. Which, to a degree, all right, maybe
do some research.
Yeah, look into him for sure. And then they threw a bunch of like slander shit that like really, if you looked into it, didn't make any sense.
I think they're trying to about one of the scholarships he
it's like, you're funded by Soros. It's like when he was in law school, he got a scholarship from Soros's brother, like from a independent group. It's like that. That is weak as hell, but okay.
I think they're also criticizing him for not being Christian. I know that was a huge one.
I could see how that could lose you some votes in like especially the hardcore conservative crowd. But the one complaint I heard about him that pissed me off every time I heard it was, yeah, well, he just says all the right stuff. Like,
what?
Oh, I'm sorry. I prefer the guy to represent me to not say the things
I'm voting for Tony, basically.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, I don't trust him because he says the things I agree with. Like, the fuck are you talking about? That one was irritating. That one was weird. But
people thinking he's like AI or something. He's just smart, quick on his feet.
He's young. That's what happens when you get young people in.
Yeah, and he's just smart. Crazy. He knows so much. Like
he's sharpened by the boardroom.
Yeah,
is the thing.
Yeah. He knows how to talk. I just knew the media was gonna rip him to shreds. Like,
yeah.
It irked me because I'm telling you, I've seen the media the way that they break all these things. I'm gonna tell you a little bit of a funny story actually. Where we kind of messed with Chris Christie. We love Chris Christie.
Oh, really?
Krispy Kremes. No. So we were in D.C., all right? So I'm a part of Leadership Institute where they kind of fly a lot of Gen Z students in to a lot of these conferences so we can learn. So we're at the Faith and Freedom Conference, and that's the first time where I met Vivek. And so we kind of noticed that all the speakers were coming out this way, so we really wanted to like run into DeSantis. So we were all like outside, not knowing that Chris Christie was doing a speech, delivering that and like shitting on Trump the whole time. We didn't know this. He was getting booed by Republicans. So when he gets out, like my friends literally call him Krispy Kremes.
Yeah.
Like we like make fun of him as a joke.
I wonder why.
He's a great runner. I don't know. No, but so we like one of the guys was just like, I think it'd be so funny if we go Christie, Chris Christie, like just start chanting and yelling it out just for fun. I was like, bro, that'd be hilarious. Let's do it. So a huge group of us got out and start chanting Chris Christie, being like acting like we're this huge enthusiastic fans.
Yeah.
He comes out, he turns around and he goes, oh, stop it, guys, and comes and shakes our hands and makes forces like us to all take a picture. Even my friends are going like this in the picture. And literally 5 seconds after, I see like a news article that talks about that moment that we just did because we were just screwing around, and the news article was like, Chris Christie must have a team that they paid for to do this, and this was PR. Chris Christie's just a genius. I was like, bro,
we did it for the meme, man.
Yeah, we were just memeing guys, and that's what was my first experience of seeing like media can really take things out of context or put like their own theories or twists. Because in reality, we were just goofing around.
Because here's the thing. Unfortunately, I have a lot of experience with this facet of it. Is media is an industry that's run on clicks, because clicks is how they get their money. Because every time somebody independently clicks on that page, they're presented with advertisements on the page, which is how the organization in general makes its money. So whether or not the thing is true, if it's clickable, then it's worth running. And so, that's why a lot of, again, like a lot of positive things don't get shared around.
They don't care.
It's things that either the two things that I think get shared the most are the things that will make you laugh or the things that will make you angry, which is why those are basically the only two things anyone ever sees in their social media feed.
That is true.
And there's a reason, because, we've biohacked the way that the human brain works and engineered it to make money. And that's everything you see when you open up your nightmare brick.
Yeah, I feel that way too. I forget I'm on my phone. I hate being on my phone.
It's an unfortunate necessity to the way that I live.
Yeah, I know. I know.
I like when I get to throw it out the window.
I just feel like it's making our generation dumber. Especially my generation. I noticed that a lot of people get a lot of their information based off of tweets and TikTok and the memes. I mean, the memes are kind of funny, but they're all out of context. And that's something I always am fearful for my generation, is that we're going to just get clickbaited into voting for the wrong candidate.
It's like when's the last time the average Gen Zer read an article and not a headline?
I don't know. A lot of them can't even read. You're looking at our children can't even, like, I think they're like fourth graders can't even read like on their level.
Well, because you have, oh God, this one is another thing. Like, again, like industry that I'm in kind of thing. I understand it well. These iPad kids are getting their dopaminergic circuitry just speed bagged by Baby Shark and a million other things. That Coco Melon, they're just sitting there watching it all day.
Becoming zombies.
Because again, these things are engineered to hit their dopamine receptors so that's all these kids want to watch. And the parents are happy to let the iPad parent the kid for them. And so by the time these kids are like 20, there is not going to be a single physical thing in the real world other than heroin that will excite their dopamine. Like, that will give them enough to even just pay attention.
And that's why I think that's the reason why I'm a little afraid for like us, our generation, when we actually go into the workforce. Like UTSA, where I go to school, we're apparently number one in cybersecurity. And I know, like, because my boyfriend is studying cybersecurity and works with like a cyber firm, right? I don't even know what it's called. But he told me that a lot of the UTSA students that are graduating, coming into this like place for a job, don't even know the surface things about cybersecurity. So you're telling me you're going to the one where they're number one, but you can't name me a surface level thing?
And those are the people that are graduating?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
Graduates.
I thought you were like, they were coming.
Graduates.
Oh God.
No, graduates. Because they don't read. They're just being taught to pass.
And I think that was my biggest thing, because I was one of the reasons why I dropped out of college was
Stop! You're gonna make me want to drop out of college.
Well, this is just my personal allegory. There's certain things you need to. I was going for law, right?
That's what I'm doing too.
I was taking the pre-law track at Campbell University for their for business school. I was in their school of business, so it was business, pre-law, whatever there, and their business school infuriated me because I wanted to learn business and I wanted to learn how to run a business. Right?
They don't teach you that.
They teach you how to write corporate memos.
They teach you how to be the employer.
Yeah.
The employee.
The employee.
The employee.
And I got frustrated, and I looked around and I'm like, man, these aren't, not to sound elitist, but I'm like, these aren't my peers. This isn't the group. This isn't the room I need to be in for the goals that I have.
No, I feel the same way. I'm studying politics and law, and like I told you earlier, like literally my professor called Tucker Carlson Hitler because he interviewed Putin. And when I asked him like why, it's not unusual for journalists to interview terrorists. They interviewed ISIS, they interviewed all these different terrorist group leaders, Democrats, and everybody was like, that's honest journalism. We need to find out.
I think it's a major problem when no average person in the West can accurately tell me why Putin went into Ukraine. If your answer is because he's a dictator, you're a headline reader. You have no idea.
And that's also why most average Americans got bored listening to that interview, because Americans think history's stupid.
Yeah, and I'm not saying Putin's right to do it, right?
Oh, yeah, no,
I'm just saying it's important that we understand
history.
His perspective on it. If you're going to address the problem, you probably need to figure out why he did it in the first place.
Yes. And he literally took us back to, I think, like 8th century, where I was just like, that's impressive.
Yeah.
And he knew names and everything. I was just like, whoa. And people were bored, and people were like, he's just like filibustering right now. And I was like, guys, those are just important context for us to understand.
I skipped forward through a good bit of it because it's like, all right, he is very long-winded on this. Like, I'm gonna pick back up like 1800s, right?
Yeah.
But
we're gonna skip a little few.
But it was interesting. He does have a grasp of it. And of course, I'm not gonna fact check everything he said, but like he seemed from the outside to have a very good grasp on his history, at least from that perspective. But it was very funny to see the memes that came afterward.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just all the. Why do we celebrate the 4th of July? Well, you see, in 800 AD, it's like talk about the fall of the Holy Roman Empire. It's like, well, can we skip ahead to at least the colonies?
Do you think it was beneficial? This is probably like a little personal question for me. Do you think it was beneficial that you like dropped out of college to focus on what you were able to do? Because you're able to start AK Guy Inc. You're able to do very successful things.
So I was actually doing that while I was in college.
That's okay.
I think one of the more beneficial things I think it was overall that was what I needed to do in my life path. I think what was more beneficial is that dropping out of high school, not dropping out of high school, but going from regular schooling to homeschooling. Because that allowed me to focus on things like learning financial literacy and
things they don't teach.
Exactly, things that especially public schooling will not teach you, not prepare you for. Because the Department of Education is absolute trash. But another thing I was able to do is I learned I did like 2-3 years of speech and debate, team policy debate.
Awesome. That
prepared me to be able to speak.
Yeah. Not many people know how to speak nowadays. It's crazy.
I'll give you a little bit of a personal story too.
Let's hear this.
I thought I knew how to speak because I've been, I'm a professional communicator. I do a podcast.
Yeah.
I speak for a living, and I've given speeches like my Young Americans for Liberty. I did my announcement speech there. Like I speak there pretty much every year, and so I thought I knew how to speak. My first time doing a stump speech as a candidate was in Castroville, and I bombed. I was so nervous. And it was a room full of people, and I was the first time in my life I ever had the sensation of my knees going. And I was laughing at myself. And I ended up making a joke. And while I'm there, I'm like, if you guys haven't figured it out, I am not used to this. I'm not a politician.
That's good, though. I think that also relaxes people, too, though.
Yeah, but it was pretty obvious. Like I was a little jittery about it.
It means you're human.
But you get better. And I ended actually the campaign tour in Castroville. And now I've got it down to a science because I know the message and I go off the cuff, and I just speak from the heart, and that was way easier. And a lot of the people there were some of the same people that were there originally in Castroville for the first one. And they were like, massive improvement.
No, I even noticed. I know. I've heard feedback too because you initially came before. I think right after your announcement for Congress.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
And then
that was the first Q&A.
I heard from because I wasn't there at the first event, but I heard also that there was definitely a huge difference in the way you carried yourself the second time.
I hate thinking about the ramifications of that because now I'm like, oh no, I'm becoming a politician.
No,
this sucks. This is awful.
You're just becoming a great speaker, and you have to understand the language of politics.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can make jokes and things like that, but there's different settings and different ways, and you just kind of learned how to figure out that room. It just took some time.
Right.
And I kind of want to also bring this back to school in the sense that they don't even teach you about failure either. Or being able, I think, like in that situation too, a normal person that gets this indoctrination be like, well, I'm not going to do that if I'm scared. I'm just going to sit here and be quiet and stay comfortable. Yeah. I always tell people if you're comfortable, it's because you're not growing.
You took it out of my mouth. It's like that. It's like, cool, you can do that, but you'll never get good at anything.
Yeah.
Because you're going to suck at everything you try to do. And that's one of the issues I have with a lot of modern media is they portray these Mary Sues and things that are just like, oh, I have an innate power and I just didn't know it. It's like, no, nobody gets good that way. Unless you're just a random savant, right? Yeah. You got to work hard. You got to work at stuff you suck at, and like me, not swearing. I suck at it. I'm trying.
Me too.
You open it up. You said I could do it, so I'm like, all right.
I'm fine with it.
But yeah, you just have to work on stuff that makes you uncomfortable, because that's the path forward is usually the thing you don't want to do.
I agree. And I think that's why I always kind of take it spiritually too, because I'm Christian. So I always tell people, when you are walking, like, okay, God, like, enemy cannot destroy the purpose God has brought forward in your life. But what he can do is fill you up with doubt and deceive you. And I see it all the time where people are consistently doubting themselves, and I say, rebuke that, because you have a purpose. And sometimes people are afraid. No, you need to run towards it. Like, God has never allowed you to fall. Why are you doubting him? That's the voice of the enemy. So that's why I always try to encourage people, like, don't listen to that and just do it. Sometimes you just got to do it. Like Nike, I guess. So.
And on top of that, you'll never find your boundaries. You'll never find, like, could I have done that? I don't know. I never tried. It's like, you can't find the things that you can't do if you never find that.
Accept failure.
Yeah.
Embrace it. Whenever I fail, I'm just like, okay, let's not do this next time. We'll do this and this.
I've had failed businesses before.
It happens.
I've had multiple failed businesses.
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, no, there's a couple companies that, I became a partner in and things like that, especially my early days in the gun industry. That, the guy who's running the company or whatever talks a real good game and everything. It's like, I'm about it, and, like, use me for marketing and things. And the numbers just, looking back on it, like, I've learned a lot of lessons. Like, the numbers didn't make sense there. I should have, made sure the contract was organized better. There should have been more checks and balances, made sure that people weren't embezzling money, because they were, different things like that, like trust but verify, as Reagan says. But there's a lot of lessons you learn from failed businesses, and thankfully I never failed in a way that, like, took me out. Like, it was never something that it's like, oh my God, I put everything I had into this. It's like, I put my eggs in multiple baskets just to kind of feel around, and a lot of them didn't work out, but now recently a lot of them have, and it's, again, put me in a position where, I say this a lot, like, the country's been very good to me, and not that it's given me anything.
It's hard work.
It's given me the opportunity to be able to do the stuff that I've done. And now I'm in a position where, I don't have to worry about where rent's coming from.
Yeah.
Right. So that's freed me up to be able to do the things that I think are important, like what I'm doing now.
I kind of hate it with, like, the liberals, because I'm Hispanic. I came from South Texas. We're not rich. My mom only had her GED, and my dad just graduated high school. And so I hate the leftist lie that it's always like, oh, you have to be rich. You have to have important parents and da-da-da. For me, it was more about, all right, how do I get in the room? And it doesn't matter how I get in the room, it matters what I do in the room.
Yep.
And every time I've been in any position, I network and I talk to people, and I've been able to, now I'm talking to you.
Yeah. And that's not something you can do. That sort of thing, that mentality is not something you can do if you assume you're a victim right out of the gate.
You
like,
can't.
well, I'll never get there because I wasn't born to it.
You want to know what I tell people? I don't call people victims. I say you're a cuck in your own life. You are a cuck. You literally
cucked yourself.
You're literally sitting down watching your own life get fucked.
Yeah.
I'm being so serious.
No, it's a good analogy.
I think the victim mindset is silly. It is stupid, because you look at my life. I'm a 20-year-old, and I had to plan the funeral for my best friend and my brother. And each time I went back to school, not easy, my guys. And it's not because I'm a woman of color. All right, life is just hard.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do about it? Are you gonna cry and complain about it, or are you going to do something about it?
That's one of the best things I say that my parents ever gave me, is because they started out, when I was being raised, it was a 1-bedroom apartment, right? Wasn't anything glamorous, and I watched them build businesses, and my mom was in real estate and everything, and I got my real estate license at 18 because I was kind of
That's so
finding stuff
awesome.
out. But I watched them build businesses and then lose it all in 2008.
Oh yeah.
And then watch them go from, like, oh God, should we invest in canned food and shotguns? And then, like, no, okay, buckle down. This is going to get tough. And I watched them as, a young adult rebuild it all and really kind of take in a lot of lessons from that. And that mentality has kind of followed me. And I think it's partially what allowed me to succeed in doing what I'm doing.
That's why you have the work ethic and you have hard work.
'Cause nobody's going to give it to you.
No, yeah. And I hate that liberal leftist mindset of, like, oh, government, please hand it to me. No, get up and work.
Well, I've got a degree, so I should have a job.
And in women's studies, look, nobody's hiring. Nobody cares.
It's like having the qualifications for the job and getting a job are not the same
That's
thing.
not the same thing. Honestly, that's why I always tell people that are trying to look shuffle around for jobs. It's because you didn't focus on your network.
Yep.
I know when I graduate, I ain't even worried about job. I don't even want to finish school because I want to focus on my podcast and be able to work politics. I'm looking at my university right now. I'm studying politics and law, like I told you, and all my teachers are leftists. And they all hate me when I ask questions.
Because they don't like being questioned.
No, my actual favorite professor, and she's leftist. That's why I kind of like her, because she gets me outside my brain. She literally, when I came back from planning my brother's funeral, and she had me sit down, she recommended for me to drop school. She said, it's easier for me to drop you on my classes on my end. And that's what she told me. But it's because I'm a Republican.
It's easier on my end?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, I did write her.
Service with a smile.
Yeah. Yep. And then, kind of fun too, I'm kind of running my own campaign too at my university. I'm going to try to drain my swamp. The funniest question I got asked when I was trying to run for Speaker of the House or Speaker of the Senate, because I am really well qualified. I know how to, the budget that we have, I've executed larger budgets than that. I've executed bigger events than whatever we've hosted with student government. And I have great networks with the businesses around San Antonio. I'm like, why are we wasting money? We can get this stuff for free.
Yeah.
And so whenever I come with ideas, they kind of throw me to the side because I'm Republican. So obviously anything I say is stupid. But when
You're a Republican. You clearly don't know how to work a budget.
Yeah, you would think they would trust a conservative with a budget. No,
Right.
they don't. They didn't even want me to be a part of financial affairs.
I understand why you wouldn't want me running gender studies, but like budget,
Or
really?
the DEI stuff. I get it. But this, no. And when I was trying to run for Speaker of the Senate, because I do have the resume. I know I can list it out to you. I have the resume. So when I was trying to run for this position, I think someone had asked me, how can you represent a majority Hispanic university when you represent a racist organization? Because I'm president of Turning Point USA.
Right.
Mother trucker. I live in South Texas, my guy. I looked at the stats. UTSA is 50% something Hispanic. The Valley's 99% being a bro. When I came to San Antonio, no, I'm being so serious.
Yeah.
When the first time I came to San Antonio was the first time I saw white and other black people and the other races existed. Because for me, it was just, we were all beaners.
What's funny to me too is, and I've gotten this before. People are like, well, that, and they use my first name and specifically not my last name.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, well, that Brandon guy, he's a xenophobe. It's like, all right, I'm going to challenge your understanding of the English language. Xenophobe. You're afraid of something different. Herrera, afraid over the immigration thing. I'm
literally
yeah,
I'm 20
this
minutes
ain't a
away.
spray tan, bud.
I was like, guys, Mexico's in my backyard.
It's insane. It's like my grandparents, or my grandfather's father lived in that whole side of the family's from Laredo, Texas. And so dude, that family goes back to Texas when it was Mexico.
Yeah. No, same.
Yeah.
I'm like, guys, my mom's first language is Spanish.
Yeah. That whole
Dude, representing UTSA is lightweight. But now I'm going to be running for a student government president.
very nice.
And it's going to be so much fun. Woo.
Well, best of luck rolling heads there. I do have to run fairly soon.
Yeah, no, I was about to say we got to wrap this up.
Yeah, I gotta go. I gotta go do that
minute.
lunch, but
no, I dropped my. I am wishing you nothing but luck, and I'm praying for you. Oh my gosh, me moving this. I'm praying for you because you are going to be entering a spiritual warfare battle, and I kind of wanted to close this off with prayer. I don't know if you're okay with that.
absolutely, no, of course.
So I'm gonna try to go.
Hit on the rug here.
Yeah. Heavenly Father, Lord, we just want to pray over Brendan Herrera, Lord, as he's entering this battlefield and going to the political journey, Lord. I know he's kind of like Jonah, has not been wanting this calling, Lord, but you've called it onto his heart for a purpose. So, Lord, we pray over the protection over his mind, heart, and his body, and more importantly, his eyes, Lord. Do not allow him to be deceived. Allow him to know when people are walking in ways of wickedness, Lord, and protect him, Lord. We need people like him in office. So, Lord, we pray for a healthy path, and any attack that comes from the enemy is not going to land. So, Lord, we pray for strength and protection. In Jesus' name, amen.
I appreciate it. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for having me. And this is, the inaugural podcast.
Yeah.
I feel honored.
Yeah. No, thank you for coming and taking the time to speak with me.
No, absolutely.
You're doing already a lot more than Tony Gonzalez, and I can't wait to see you in that seat. I'm going to help you every step of the way.
Well, I appreciate it. It means a lot, and all the help that you guys have been given has been appreciated.
Yeah, of course.
Very
Thank you so much.